Starting. All right, looks like we're live, Nate. Welcome everybody to the Extremely Decent Video Game Podcast, episode number 29. And some of you may be thinking, how are you on episode 29? Well, 2 years ago, me and Nate, we used to do this very podcast, and then we went down a different road and we tried some different things out. They didn't really work. Then we both got very busy in our own lives. Nate, between his art and switching jobs and moving, and then myself, I went down a different career path. So we've been kind of all over the place in terms of growing as individuals and just trying to find ourselves in life. But I think that we're both kind of in a good place right now. And I feel like this was a perfect time to start the podcast back up because our lives seem to kind of be normalizing a little bit. You agree with that, Nate?
Yeah, a little bit. Things are starting to settle in.
Okay, so since we're probably going to be getting a couple of new viewers, Nate, why don't you give me like a 60-second elevator pitch as to who you are and, where gaming's kind of, been in your life as of late?
I'm Nate, and I'm very much a classic gamer. I like platformers. Anything that's got a nice 16-bit aesthetic is usually high on my list. And lately, I've been revisiting older games, but I am currently starting to catch up with some newer games that I've been wanting to play. So I've gotten a few of those knocked out that I'm definitely ready to share my opinions on.
Yeah. So for listeners, me and Nate, we used to work together. Well, what's it been now? Like 2 years, right? Probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
God. So me and Nate used to always get together back in the produce back room. We worked for a grocery store, and we would always just sit there and talk about video games. And, I kind of brought up the idea like, hey, we should do a podcast. I mean, we're going to be talking about video games. We should do a podcast anyway. And, that's how an Extremely Decent Video Game Podcast was kind of born. And we want to keep this podcast really chill. We just want to have like an open line of dialogue, nothing really structured. We just want to have an open conversation and see where it takes us. We will have some speaking points, and we kind of try to stick somewhat to whatever the current zeitgeist might be. So for now, we're going to do the podcast once a month. And as we grow, which I'm hoping that we do grow, and as we find an audience, we may start doing them more and more. It is our goal to kind of build an audience and do this hopefully more than once a month. And who knows where this is going to take us. We may never find an audience, Nate, but I think we will. Back in the day, we had quite some success. We did a No Man's Sky podcast back in the day that had something like almost 500 views. So, we were building some steam, and I hope to find a larger audience this time around. If you're listening to us on Hangouts or YouTube or whatever, we have a little Facebook page. It's called I believe just look up Extremely Decent Games on Facebook and you'll find us there. I stream video game content over there, and I do some like news videos and things of that nature. So check that out if you have some time. But today, the big juicy thing going on, Nate, is Red Dead Redemption 2, and it came out last Friday. And as of right now, it's number 2 in terms of the biggest video game release of all time. It's grossed, I think the last time I checked, it was like $725 million in revenue in just like 3 days. That would have been yesterday, so it's even higher now. What's your thoughts on that number?
That's pretty insane. I mean, granted, the hype behind the game, I guess it shouldn't be too surprising, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see any game being successful. Really,
it's hard to believe that this is the first game Rockstar has come out with since GTA 5, and GTA 5 is a game that came out actually last gen, the very end of the Xbox 360, PS3 life cycle, and it ended up getting remastered and put on current gen technology, and it's every single month it is still in the top 10, in terms of games being purchased either digitally or physically. And the game is what, 5-6 years old at this point.
Yeah.
So that's pretty insane that here we are, Red Dead Redemption 2 killing it, and the only game to ever beat it in terms of launch week is GTA 5, which again is Rockstar. So what's the secret sauce, Nate? How come Rockstar just can come out with this big in numbers? What is it about their games that see them with this much success?
Obviously, it's just the fact that they're able to craft such fantastic open world games. I mean, everyone loves to dive into these open world games that have this incredible amount of detail and make you really feel like you're immersed in this world, and Rockstar is just the king at crafting those types of games, and they've garnered a reputation over the years that they got their fan base, and we know that when Rockstar is putting out a game, it's gonna be good. So
Yeah, they just had that reputation. Like, it's almost like when I saw the early reviews coming in, it was like, yep, this is exactly what I expected from them. And one of the big outlets, IGN, gave it a perfect 10, and I just wasn't surprised at all. I was going to be more surprised if the game wasn't receiving 10s, and so I want to talk about. I know you haven't played it, correct?
right, yeah.
Do you plan on purchasing the game anytime soon, or are you going to wait on it?
Anytime soon, no. This is one of those games that's more of when it comes at a discount price, I'll definitely want to check it out. But yeah, I mean, I love the fact that it's a Western open world game. So as long as it's got a good spin on the open world genre, I'm willing to dive into those types of worlds. But very much right now, I'm kind of doing the bite-sized game, so this one's gonna kind of slide to the wayside for me for a little while.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So I got a little story for you, Nate. So on Friday, the launch day of the game, I already knew I was going to purchase it. So, I wake up and, as soon as I get up, I buy it digitally, and I'm off to work, and I'm like anticipating going home and playing the game all day. So I'm blowing through work as fast as I can, and I end up banging out like 10 hours worth of work in about 6 hours. And so I'm driving home in anticipation. I get home, take a shower real quick, turn on the PS4, and then I go to log on, and it's not letting me log on. I'm like, okay, what the heck's going on? So turns out my internet shit the bed. So
Oh gosh.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Of all times for my internet to go down, it's when I decide to buy probably my most anticipated game of 2018, and my internet shits the bed. So I called my internet company, and they're trying to ping, the server, and sure enough, they're like, no, something's up with your modem. We're not finding a modem. So they tell me the soonest they can get a technician out is Tuesday. So I'm like, that's not good. So I'm like, I'm going to try everything I can to fix the situation. So I have 2 cable outlets in my house. So what I do is I take my modem upstairs and see if I can get a signal there. Nope. No bueno. Like, no luck, dude. So I keep going back and forth. For 2 hours, I sit here and play, and I try and do everything I can to get the internet up, to no luck, bro. So I call him again. I'm like, listen, I'm trying to stream the game. I need somebody out ASAP. And again, no luck. So here we go on Monday, and I've just been, playing. What did I play? I've been playing some Nintendo Switch. I've been playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, which we're going to talk about that later. Definitely not part of the conversation on that one, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. But anyways, Monday rolls around, so I call Spectrum up again, and I'm like, hey, if I bring you guys my modem, can I just swap it out? Because I just can't wait till Tuesday, Nate. So like, yeah, bring in your modem. So I get there at 8 in the morning, swap out modems, go home, get my internet working. Fantastic. Download the game. And so on Monday, I got to spend about an hour with it. Playing a game like that, you definitely want to be in the right headspace. You know, you want to be immersed in the story. So if you got other stuff going on, it's like one of those situations where it's like, just wait. And so that's what I did. So Monday I played about an hour just so I had some speaking points. So in the first hour, the game kicks off, and it had like a real Oregon Trail vibe to it. Like you start off and you're like seeing these these horse coaches, and they're just going down these snowy capped mountains. And I'm going to talk about the story really broad, so I'm not going to spoil anything. So basically, you're a group of outlaws, and you're kind of on the run. The government's building up, and they're pushing out all these outlaws. And so you find yourself on the run, and not going to talk about characters or anything of that nature. So you're trying to get out of the cold, and you find this little settlement, and you kind of chill there for a while. And that kind of like sets the tone of the game right there. You're at that point, you're able to kind of break off and do a couple of different missions. And the one I'm going to talk about, because it's spoiler free, it just has your character kind of going on a hunt, so you can provide for your little settlement or whatever. And that's where this game totally had me immersed, Nate. Like you hunt these deer, and you have a bow and arrow. And so what I wanted to do is see how much the game could vary. So what I did was I killed my first 2 deer, and I decide to turn my PS4 off and try the same mission over again, so it didn't save, to see if I could do it differently, to see if, because the first time I killed the deer instantly. So I'm like, well, is it possible to not kill the deer instantly and then have to follow a blood trail? Because, I'm from Michigan, so I know what it's like to go deer hunting and not get a kill shot and have to go deep into the woods and try and find the deer. Like, I've lived that life, and I wanted to see if you could actually do it in the game and how immersive it was and how realistic it was. So sure enough, second time, find the same deer, shoot it in the back the back left leg, and sure enough, Nate, deer doesn't die instantly. I have to go follow this blood trail. I have to seek out the trail and go deeper into the woods, where I find the deer like on the ground struggling, and I had to go up and I had to kill it. So there's actually kill shots where, you want to go for the head or for the heart. So the fact that you could actually do that was like incredible. So I'm happy to report that, the hunting mechanics are extremely, extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Deep. You got to get the kill shots. Other things that I noticed about the game that are pretty spoiler free is the game's progress system. Not only does your character progress, but your interactions with your horse. There's a whole skill tree with you and your horse. So if you bond with your horse, there was a situation. Is this spoil? Yeah, I don't want to say what happens, because it is a little bit spoilerly. So I'm not really going to talk about it, but just know that there is a progression system with not only you, but you and your horse as well. And it's quite deep. And some of the perks that you get, they don't necessarily help you in the game. They're just fun things, which I thought were really cool. And I think the overall biggest takeaway from me so far, and again, I'm only about probably 2 hours in, because I played a little bit before we hopped on the mic. It's incredible how much this feels like GTA when it comes to character movements and getting into cover and things of that nature. But it feels so like different and detached from GTA 5 that it just kind of amazes me. It feels like two completely different games, but at the same time, you know you're playing a Rockstar game.
It sounds incredible. It really does. And I've seen some gameplay footage. Of course, the graphics are just insane. So yeah, I think the hype is definitely justified for this game. I can't wait to see more like little Easter eggs that people find and stuff like that, and just hear about all the neat twists on scenarios that can take place.
Yeah, man, Rockstar, they got a hit on their hands clearly. I don't think anyone doubted that that was going to be the case. One of the articles that I was reading that's kind of fun is that the snow in the game, it actually, like, as you're walking through it, it leaves trails behind. So people are drawing like penises in the snow. And
Of
so
course.
I thought that was kind of fun. Already seen a lot of fun videos out there, but yeah, man, so far so good. I think it's going to be very high up on my list of one of my favorite games of all time, if not the best. We'll see. Hopefully, by the end of November, I'll have the game beaten so I can give you guys my full review of the game. But so far so good. Hats off to Rockstar for building yet another beautiful open world game, and I can't wait to play more. So Nate, tell me about Mega Man 11.
Yeah, so I guess both of us got a treat this month with games that are perfect for us in our genres. But yeah, I got to play Mega Man 11 this month. I was anticipating this one quite a bit. I'm a huge fan of the franchise and that whole kind of genre of games and to begin with, and it's been a while since we've had like a really true Mega Man game. The last thing to come out really was Mighty Number 9, which we all know is a huge flop. That was created by the original creator of the Mega Man games. So it seems to me like, as soon as Capcom heard that they were making Mighty Number 9, they must have started working on this game because it's incredibly polished. It looks phenomenal. It plays, it's got tight controls. It gives you the feeling of, old school Mega Man games while giving you a fresh graphical update that very much stays true to the original games, which I really like. It's got a nice cel-shaded graphical style to the characters and enemies, which works really nice. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It's a nice fun little game. I think I beat it in about 10 hours. So over the course of 3 days, I pretty much knocked it out. And the play style of the game, it very much, it varies. If you want to play it like an old school Mega Man and just go through it and just memorize the levels and just get good, as they say, you can do it that way. You can use the bolts that you pick up from enemies to buy extra power-ups in case you're having trouble with a specific level or boss. You can load up on extra lives or load up on energy tanks for your life gauge to kind of help you get through the hump. So if you're a more casual player, you'll definitely find some fun to be had with the game because, as long as you're willing to farm a little bit, then you can, get through some of the tougher sections. So I really like the approachability of the game because you never really get too frustrated. It is one of those games where you are going to have to play the same levels over again and learn enemy patterns and, be prepared for what you're going to encounter, which is something that I really liked about Mega Man games and old school gaming in general. I know that's not for everyone, but this kind of, gives you a little leeway room with, how you want to play the game, which is really nice. My favorite thing, of course, is the Robot Masters and getting to defeat them and get their powers. One of the greatest additions to this game, I think, is that it overall changes Mega Man's appearance. It used to be just a simple color swap between, your your boss powers that you got. But now it kind of changes the way Mega Man looks. His helmet will be different for certain things. His Buster Cannon will be different. So that's just a nice little aesthetic touch that I really like because I'm very fond of character designs, and I thought that was really cool the way they did that. And the gear system, it reminds me a lot of Beautiful Joe, which is a franchise I'd like to see make a comeback with the ability to slow down time and power yourself up with the double gear system, which is basically just using triggers to activate the power for a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
And
let me cut in right here and ask you about that, because that was something that was kind of controversial because it's such a deviation from like old Mega Man games. And I'm someone who's speaking about it with like no authority. I've only dabbled in the franchise. So like how much different does that new system make the game feel? Like does it still stay true to what a Mega Man game is, or does it really make it feel different than previous installments in the franchise?
see, I don't think it makes it feel too much different. Now, that is a good and a bad thing, in my opinion. Many of the stages don't rely heavily on you having to use the double gear system to make it through certain parts. There are a few levels that do require you to be able to slow down time to make it through parts easier, but so I guess fundamentally, like, it doesn't change the game enough that I feel like it deviates from the original Mega Man game gameplay, but it does kind of seem like a missed opportunity that they didn't implement it more into the level design to require you to use it more often.
So you almost feel like it's like a half step then?
Yeah, it is very much a half step. It seems like it's more to be used to make the game easier for casual players than it is to challenge the player in most levels. So I could see where a lot of people would be, kind of divided on the double gear system and if it was really necessary at all or if it really adds that much to the game. I
Is
really
there
don't feel like it detracts at all, though.
is there like a new game plus after you beat it that maybe it uses that mechanic more, or
I do know that I've only played through the game one time, and I do know that on harder difficulty levels, you get different access to abilities. So I guess depending on if you're going to play it on a harder difficulty mode, you would have access to another ability where you can instantly combine the two dual gear abilities and do some other stuff. So I haven't explored too far into that, but I do know that the gameplay does change a little bit based on the difficulty setting that you're playing at. I just played it at normal just to experience the game, and so yeah, there is a little bit of varying gameplay mechanics there.
Interesting. And maybe it's one of those things that this was them like kind of implementing that new gameplay mode, or not mode, but what would you call that? Um,
The mechanic
Yeah,
of
mechanic. There you go.
yeah.
Uh, so, maybe that was their way of introducing it. And then maybe in the sequel to this game, like they'll explore that mechanic further, or perhaps there's some DLC that's going to pursue it a little bit further. But my last and final question is, if you're somebody that's never played a Mega Man game in your entire life, would this be a good entry point to get into, or should maybe you play some other Mega Man games before getting into this one?
I would definitely recommend this one. Mostly because graphically it looks the best out of all the Mega Man games that I played. So I really feel like not only will you have something visually intriguing to look at, because most Mega Man games are pretty bland graphically, the NES ones, but you'll get that great Mega Man gameplay, and you'll get an experience that I feel could make a lot of Mega Man fans.
Well, that's good to know, man. Because I dabbled in it on the Nintendo Switch for a little bit. They had the demo up, and I tried it. And there's like a little tutorial on that, slow down time mechanic and going back and forth between the different Mega Mans and stuff. And I feel like it was a little complicated, and it kind of like scared me away initially. But if you're saying that, it doesn't utilize it too much, perhaps, I let myself get scared away too easily. Maybe I'll check it out, just knowing that, I may not have to use it that much. And maybe as the game kind of like progresses and the story progresses, maybe it slowly will ease me in. One thing I did see in some threads is people, diehard Mega Man fans, saying that it kind of like takes away from the fluidity that is Mega Man, and that you got to kind of use these systems, and it kind of takes the fluidity away. Would you say that that was a thing that you encountered, or are people just being a little hyperbolic, looking for anything to complain about? What do you
It is a little bit of both, I think. I mean, I can see the complaint because I know that kind of the groove you get in with Mega Man games where you can basically hold down right and just keep going, hitting the jump and fire buttons. And that's an awesome feeling to have. So if you're like a really diehard Mega Man fan and you're used to being able to play levels in a very smooth fashion like you can on the older ones, this does interrupt that a little bit. But to me personally, I don't find that it detracts from the game at all, and it really is kind of, not something that I would say is a major complaint.
Okay. So then, does it get your Nathan Hodge EDG seal of approval? You highly recommend this game?
Oh, I definitely highly recommend this. For a $30 price point, I definitely think it's a game that you should pick up if you're into platformers.
And you played on the PlayStation, correct?
I did indeed.
Now, what do you think about it being on the Nintendo Switch? You think it'd be better in that handheld mode? I bet it feels good.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, getting to take that out anywhere and it just being fun, because it's a perfect bite-sized little game. You can play it in 10 to 15-minute chunks when you're on the go and still feel like you're, progressing. So definitely a great game to have on the Switch.
That sounds excellent, dude. Next thing I want to talk about, Nate, is the last episode, because when we decided to get this thing going back, I decided to go down memory lane and look at like what was the last episode we did as EDG, under the EDG umbrella. And I went back and listened to that podcast. Now, one of the things that we were talking about in that very podcast was PlayStation allowing cross-play.
Oh, man, that's been in the news recently.
Exactly, and that's what was so funny about it, because we talked about it, and you felt like it wasn't something that PlayStation should pursue, that there was really no incentive for them to really go after it, and that you thought that it might have been more of a distraction for them. How do you feel about it 2 years later? The fact that PlayStation 4 now allows people on their platform to play cross network with the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox One, and even PC players on Fortnite. It was in beta form. I'm not sure if it is just fully open to the public now. I probably should have looked that up. But anyways, it is something that PlayStation is now finally dipping their toes into and allowing their gamers to play with other gamers. And of course, it is on a game like Fortnite, which is like the biggest game in the world now. We would have never probably saw that coming 2 years ago. But what are your thoughts? Do you still feel the same way about it, or?
I want to say that I might have been playing a little bit of devil's advocate when I was voicing my opinions. I don't know. You did listen to it more recently than I did.
Yeah,
I have changed my opinion, though. I would say definitely that PlayStation needs to get on the ball with this cross-platform play. I don't believe that they have anything to lose by it at this point. I mean, they've been the console leader this entire time for the entire generation. The only little bit of competition they're getting is from the Switch here late in the PlayStation 4's life. So to give players the ability to play cross-platform is something that 2 or 3 years ago just seemed like such fantasy that this was never going to happen. But to see it happening with a game that, of course, is as popular as Fortnite, which that's the obvious thing to test this on. What is everyone playing on every system? Try it out on that, see how well it works, and I'd be interesting to see how much engagement players are getting, doing the cross-platform play. Like, how much of a percentage of cross-platform play makes up players' time playing the games? Are you still seeing more people playing PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 4, or is the percentage wider with cross-platform play? There's a lot of statistics I'd be interested in seeing coming out of this, but I really think PlayStation and Microsoft and everyone should just get along and be like, hey, if we're gonna have these multi-platform games, let's make it so where players from every system can buy and play the game together, because obviously I think it's a win-win for everyone, because everyone's kind of already got their console by this point. So
Right.
it's just going to encourage people to pick up this one game and just know that they're going to be able to play it with their friends no matter what other system that they've got. So just
Right.
do it.
Yeah. When I heard the news, I'm like, this is such great news, because it's one of those situations where, like, this month's PlayStation Plus free game was Friday the 13th. And so I've only got one other person that I know that has the game on PlayStation. And so while I'm playing, it's the more people you have to play online with together, the better the experience is going to be. And being that I only know one person on PlayStation that has the game, it's kind of a bummer. Now, if I had the Xbox user base that I could also choose from, then I would have more friends that I can, get together and play that game and enjoy the game way more. So this is like a dream come true for me. But the question is how long is it going to take to where we start seeing, big AAA title games like, get the crossplay treatment? Like, how long is it going to be before, Black Ops 4 is going to allow crossplay? I'm assuming it's going to be quite a long time before we see something like that. How long you think it'll be before it's just like crossplay is just a standard on all like third party games? You think it'll be a while?
I do think it'll be a while. I mean, we'll probably see it more with multiplayer only games. I mean, that's the natural first genre that you should tackle with cross-platform, because that really is going to add longevity to those games. You see a lot of these just not single player, but like, just multiplayer only games go live, and then like a month later, their player base is just gone. And unless you're like a Fortnite, which has, the sticking power, the only way you're going to get a lot of mileage out of these multiplayer only games is to let cross-platform play be standard on them. So
Right.
I think we'll see it first there, and if it's successful enough, maybe it'll start bleeding into other genres. But I think that's the major arena that it needs to stick to begin with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a side note to this that I thought was kind of funny is one of the developers, it might have even been the CEO of the studio that built the game Rocket League, was saying how PlayStation should allow for crossplay, and that it was so easy for them to implement crossplay once Sony allows it, that all they had to do is literally click a button and then crossplay would be pretty much enabled right away. Well, now that PlayStation's like on board, and it looks like Rocket League might be one of the next games that are on the list for cross-platform play. Well, now all of a sudden, those same developers are saying, "Oh, wait, we have to get our battle net in line and our leaderboards and all this. So whenever PlayStation allows us, we'll be ready to go next year." So it's kind of funny because they were like, oh, we just have to click a button, and now they're kind of backtracking, saying, oh wait, it's not as simple as that. So what do you think about that?
That's probably just some developers talking shit a little bit,
Yeah.
like, we want this so bad, we've got it ready right now. And then now that they're like, oh, there is a system in place for this. Well, maybe we ought to make sure everything's optimized and working right, and, maybe build this thing first. Who knows what was really happening there, but I'd be willing to bet that, they're going to take their time with it and make sure that it's right before they can just click a button and make things happen.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going back 2 years ago, again, one of the things, Nate, that you were worried about is an all digital future, or where we could no longer walking to a video game store and pick out our physical media to bring home and crack open that package and pop it into our console of choice. Here it is, 2018, and if there's any indicators, Nate, it looks like an all-digital future, or even worse, maybe worse. I don't know how you feel about it 2 years later, but it looks like streaming games may be the future. So there's this new thing, and I don't know how much you know about it. It's called Google, what is it, Stream? Let me see what it's called real quick. I got it written down here. It is called Google Project Stream. How much do you know about this?
I know zero about that.
All right. So this is very fitting, it being Halloween, the day we're recording this. Some doom and gloom. Nate, do you still fear an all digital future, or better yet, a future where we're streaming our video games? What do you think?
All right, this is going to be a little funny, I think, but I've begun to ease on the digital thing, but I do still fear the streaming thing. So I'll give you just a brief kind of impressions about how I've changed on the digital download thing. I just like it for convenience. I still very much like having my physical boxes and the art and all that stuff, but for a lot of bite-sized games, it's just convenient just to have it already on there and not have to switch out discs and all that. The reason why I fear streaming so much is because you have to have, online access. You have to have, a connection to some service in order for those games to work. And that scares me because you don't always have, connections. I just went through a hurricane, and it was nice to just be able to play my games without having to worry about being online. So now that's what I'm afraid of. Like, I'm getting more comfortable with just digital download, but I'm still very much afraid of the streaming thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I just told you about the story where I bought my game digitally and then I lost my internet and I had to stare at the title screen for 3 days before I could play the game. So it definitely has its benefits, and it definitely can be scary at the same time. One of the things that you talked about in the past, where it's like you don't physically own the game. So if one day they just decide to pull the game, you could potentially no longer own that game. And I get the idea of not having it physically in your library, and that's kind of scary. But do you see this article? I'm screen sharing, so you should see.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically what Google Project Stream is, so they got this thing, the test bed for this was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And what they did was they had a small test bed where anyone that tried to sign up for it in their email had the opportunity to try out Assassin's Creed. I'm not really going to read the whole article, but I am going to go and pick out some things. So it says here you want a minimum of a 25 megabit per second or faster internet connection. Now, in the threads, I heard some people saying that they only had 10 megabytes per second and that the game was pretty much running buttery smooth. Now, to use Project Stream, all you have to do is go to your browser, a Chrome browser, and then you literally just open the game in a browser. And as long as your internet speed is Well, it says here 25 megabits, but again, I saw people with only 10 megabits, and they said the game was fantastic. The experience overall was really good. The latency was a non-issue. The graphics were coming in nice and clear. Some people that didn't have the better internet connection said that there were frame rate dips here and there, and sometimes there was a little bit of buy rate issues, but nothing that was like game breaking and nothing that was terrible. So, what do you think about this idea of just being able to stream games right from your Chrome browser?
I mean, it does seem cool, right? I do like the idea of just being able to type in a URL and just start playing the game. And as long as it plays smooth, I guess that's fine, but it's not something that I'm going to pay for unless that service is, constant. Like, if we get to a point where Wi-Fi is not dependent on the modem or the wiring in your house or a cable box or something like that, and it's like truly just wireless and, ubiquitous, I guess, maybe then I'll be a little bit more excited about the idea of being able to stream games. But I do like the fact that I don't necessarily have to have access to the internet to play a video game. It is cool, though. It is cool.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I mean, they still have a long way to go in terms of making this a viable option. Like, I don't think it's going to affect the next generation of consoles. I still think that whatever the PS5 is going to look like, I think it's still going to be pretty much what we're used to, an extremely powerful console that looks great on your 4K television. I think it's going to work pretty much the same. I am hearing a lot of people saying, that the next Xbox is going to be like a streaming console, and I think it's going to be a major deviation from what, like, the Xbox One was, and I think it should be. I think that the Xbox One didn't do extremely well this generation. It did fine. I mean, it did better than the Xbox 360, but I mean, Xbox got their butts kicked by PS4 this generation. And I think that PlayStation has done a great job building up new IPs, and the future is super exciting for PlayStation. And I think that when it comes to owning the living room and owning the 4K TV, I think that that's where the PlayStation 5 is just going to dominate again next generation. And I think it would be smart for Xbox, if these rumors are true, for them to have something more of like a streaming console that allows, because this new games pass where you pay, like, I think it's $10 a month, and you can play all of Xbox's games and first party titles for $10 a month. You don't have to actually buy the game. I think a streaming service makes a lot of sense for Xbox, and I think if they want to be competitive next generation, I think this would be a great avenue for them to explore. And it's looking like there's going to be more competition next generation, because now if Google gets on board, it has to make you wonder if, like, other companies like Apple, we've always heard this, these rumors of Apple getting into the gaming scene, and now mobile gaming is growing in popularity. So do you think it makes sense for Microsoft to focus more on the streaming and PlayStation to continue to do what they do? Does that make sense to you? Or
That does make sense. I mean, I can see it as an avenue to be pursued. Um, there's very little risk in trying it, I suppose. And it is a very novel concept. If they can get it to work correctly, I do believe it's got an audience. I think a lot of people would, prefer to pay, a lower, like, the average game is $60. So if you're buying a new game every month for $60 and they can get that rate lower than $60, I think for a lot of people it'll be a very attractive financially to be able to say, hey, I'm only going to spend like $30 a month for the service, but I'm going to have access to every AAA title that comes out, then yeah, it's definitely worth my time and money at that point. So if they can get that price point to a sweet spot where it's attractive to consumers, I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't try it, especially Microsoft, since, you know, they need to be trying some new things anyway.
Yeah, I really feel like next generation, like a subscription based model just makes sense. Everything's going subscription based now. Like you look at Netflix, and you look at, dude, there's all these different subscriptions. Like the razors I get subscription based. Like it just makes sense, and it's a way for companies like Xbox and PlayStation to have gamers just pay a certain dollar every month, and they don't have to worry about dropping $60 for every new game that comes out. They just pay this one flat rate. Like I recently subscribed to GameFly, and I love it. Just knowing that, for $25 a month, I get to choose 2 different games. When I'm done with it, I can just mail it back, and in 3 days, I got a new game to play. It's really cool. I'm playing all these games that I would have never bought. But I'm not afraid to try them out, because if I don't like them, I can just trade it in for a new one. And that whole subscription based model, it makes it to where the consumer doesn't have to worry about a game not necessarily delivering, because nothing's worse than getting burned. You spend $60 on a game, and then it just wasn't great. I can't tell you how many times that I bought a physical game, like Destiny 2 is prime example of that. Had I spent $60 on that game, I might have felt a little burnt. But luckily, it came with my PS4 Pro, and it just it softened the blow, so to speak. But there's a lot of times where, yeah, gamers, they buy a $60 game, it doesn't pan out for them, and they feel burned. So that subscription-based model could take care of that. So it's just something that I want to keep an eye on, and I want to see what next generation looks like, man, because it's sounding like it's going to be far different than anything that we've been used to in the past. So these are things we'll keep our eyes on over the next couple months. And, come next E3, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, Nate, and it's a game that I'm not particularly sure how you feel. I'd like to get a temperature check from you. Days Gone, it has been announced that it's getting delayed. It was initially supposed to launch sometime in February. I want to say it was like February 26th. And it was launching alongside 3 other AAA titles, all on the same day. So we had Days Gone, we had Anthem, we had Crackdown 3, and we had Metro Exodus. 4 huge games coming out all on the same day. Ben Studio has announced that they are taking Days Gone off that date, and it will be releasing, I want to say it's like 1 or 2 months later. What do you feel about Days Gone? Are you hype about it? And what do you think about this delay? Is it smart? What do you think?
All right, so Days Gone is a zombie game.
They're not calling them zombies. Sony banned,
but
they're calling them freakers, because at this point, zombies so taboo that like nobody will call a zombie a zombie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that zombie game where it follows a motorcycle gang, and yeah, you're thinking of the correct game.
Okay. So lukewarm to cold at best for my temperature check on this game. So yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I remember seeing it at E3, and I remember this was the one with the swarm, right? It had like a swarm of zombies
Correct.
that you were mowing down.
Correct.
That part did seem cool.
Yeah.
If they could manage that mechanic, that would probably be the only thing that would really draw me to that game, because that's something you really hadn't seen in video games before, like zombies moving and giant waves,
right? It's like
of constant bodies.
Yeah,
exactly. So if they can perfect that mechanic and make it really fun, that would put it on my radar. Other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot about that game that stood out to me.
Right. If there's one thing that your boy Game Day Jay loves, it's zombies. Anybody that knows me knows that I love zombies. When it comes to zombie games, I'm like, just give me more. I can't get enough zombies, right? That being said, I'm not entirely sold on the game. You know what I mean? I have consumed so much media on the game because there's been so much of it. I've seen multiple playthroughs on the game. And it's just like, it looks fine, but it doesn't look like something that is like just like screaming, like you have to go spend $60 and go play this game. Like, again, it looks fine, but it just, there's so many other first person open world game, or I'm sorry, third person open world games out there that I'd rather kind of be playing. With Red Dead Redemption 2 just now coming out, one has to assume we're going to see some Undead Nightmare DLC for that game. And anyone that's not familiar what Undead Nightmare is the original Red Dead Redemption came out with arguably the best DLC I've ever played, and it had this like zombies mode added on. It had its own storyline. It had I think it was like the four horses of the apocalypse that you got to kind of find in the game as you played through. One would have to assume that that's going to return for Red Dead Redemption 2. Now the question is when will they put that DLC out? I would assume sometime early next year, which would put it kind of close to Days Gone. So it's like you're going to have Rockstar's new zombie DLC competing with Days Gone. And I'm sorry, I'm putting my money on Rockstar. So, dude, I'm extremely scared for Days Gone, man. Like, the game looks fine. The studio's amazing. I mean, Sony Ben has made some great games in the past. But Nate, this game has been in development for 6 years, and they got a lot riding on this. And again, zombie games are super taboo right now, and it's just like an oversaturation at this point of zombie games out there, and like a lot of them just aren't good. And then like there's the whole like motorcycle gang like mechanic thingy, and like I'm not seeing a lot of hype for the game, dude.
Yeah, I feel bad for them because it seems like they're putting a lot of hard work into this project, and they might have just missed the whole zombie craze in video games. Like, it's really getting to the point where people don't want to play zombie games anymore. Not the general audience. I know that you're a zombie guy, and
Yeah.
you'll always have a soft spot for that genre. But as far as the wider audience, I think they're pretty much past it. But if they can really do something interesting with the motorcycle gang mechanics, like give you a real feeling of being out on the open road on your chopper mowing down like hordes of zombies, they might be able to pull something out. But it's really going to be a long shot for them. I think you're right. I think it's going to be a very much an uphill battle for that game to be successful.
Yeah, and I feel like with this time that they bought themselves, they said that I can't remember if it was 1 month or 2 month delay. They said they're going to spend that time to polish the game, and I think in that time frame too, they need to market this game a little bit better, tell you why this game's going to be different than other zombie games. Like you said, it has that amazing tech where there's like huge floods of zombies. In some of the demos I've seen, there's different ways to take out these large groups of zombies using the environment. One of the things that they showed was like there was like this logger truck, and if you shot the truck, like the logs could like pretty much stumble, or I'm sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? They just fall on the big horde of zombies and take them out that way. So I'm wondering how much of the game is that where you're using the environment to your advantage. I wonder what the motorcycle mechanics are going to be like. Like, it seems kind of like Dubroian a little in a sense, it being like this motorcycle game, but who knows, maybe there is a deep story there that they can tell. And it is a Sony first party studio, so it's kind of like they haven't failed us in the past. And a show that I'm very fond of is Sons of Anarchy, and if this game can kind of have some of those Sons of Anarchy like elements in it, there could be a great story there. I hope they do well. I never want to see a game fail, but again, scared for this game, but we'll see how it all pans out. If it doesn't end up panning out, I wonder what that means for Sony Bend, because this game's been in development for so long. It's had so many resources devoted to it. I wonder if this game could come out flop and Sony Bend be okay, because I really don't think they have anything in the pipeline other than this game. So we'll see how it all turns out. Um, Anything else you got, Nate, that you wanted to talk about before we close this thing out?
I would like to discuss a little bit of my first impressions in No Man's Sky, the Abyss update. Of course, everyone already knows that No Man's Sky Next Update came out earlier this year and was phenomenal. Just giant expansion upon the game. It is basically now the game that everyone wanted it to be. It's all been icing on the cake for me. But the latest expansion is the Abyss, which basically adds more depth, if you will, to the ocean environments. Some of the notable changes is you have more types of aquatic life now. You've got more resources to be mined underwater. You have, according to various depths that you reach, you'll see different types of aliens down there, which is really cool. They've also added specific customization parts for underwater base building, and you have a submarine now. So,
wow.
I've only got to spend a couple of hours with the update, so I haven't crafted the submarine yet, which is what I plan on doing next. I have got to spend quite a bit of time exploring the new depths, and I got to say it's very good. It's, you know, they've fleshed it out very, very well. I do think that between the next update and the previous update, that the underwater environments had gotten less lush with Next, but they seem to have been reestablished and improved upon with the Abyss update. So not only are they back to their former glory, they're even better than they were before. So yeah, the Abyss update also brings a few minor graphical tweaks. Some of the ground rendering looks a lot better, which it's kind of a weird thing to say, but you spend a lot of time looking at planet surfaces, so the way they render, it's kind of the surface structure is new and different and adds a little bit of depth to the overall graphical experience. I'm still getting a lot of frame rate issues, which has been kind of a constant thing with the No Man's Sky game.
Yeah, it's definitely plagued them for sure.
It's always on planets that are very lush with a lot of alien life. When you'll enter an area that has a variety of alien life, the frame rate's always gonna like dip real bad. So that is one thing to be wary of. But other than that, man, I can't believe how much extra time and effort they've put into this game. I mean, there have been 7 major updates so far, and everyone has added just an immense amount of things to do. So I'm very much excited to get more into the Abyss and get into the story that they have attached to it. I haven't gotten too far into the story. I think there's like probably an additional 10 hours of gameplay, I think they're saying. I do tend to get distracted very easily while playing this game, just like looking at, you know, the stuff that's around me. But yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about it, unless if you haven't played No Man's Sky yet.
Now's the time.
Why aren't you playing it? Like, they make it easier than ever to get onto multiplayer, which is something we need to try out sometime. I definitely need to get my PS Plus subscription back so we can try out some of the multiplayer in No Man's Sky and see how well it holds up.
Yeah,
Uh,
hopefully maybe next month after the podcast we can do a post podcast stream and we'll check it out next month maybe.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that, and I think that's all I got.
Where do you think people stand in terms of that game now? Because people were upset when the game initially launched, saying that they overpromised and underdelivered. Then when they relaunched, No Man's Sky Next, it was a free update if you own the game already. Do you think that they've done a good job course correcting this game? And do you think that, they're making all the right necessary steps to get people reinvested?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they've done everything that I really feel like they've done everything that the player base has wanted them to do. They've been very attentive to listening to what we as players want from the game. They've implemented pretty much every aspect that we've asked for, and then some. So I couldn't have higher praise for a development team that is stuck with their game. And even though it may have had a lackluster launch with a lot of disappointed players, I see nothing but positive comments online about this game. I run a No Man's Sky blog for Tumblr. I'm always lurking on the Reddit subreddits for No Man's Sky, and now whenever something comes out about the game, you'll have one or two people be like, yeah, but this game sucks, and then you'll have a deluge of other people commenting, oh no, it's good now. This is the game that we wanted.
Right.
It's to the point that they promised, and that's the most exciting part, is to see people coming around and defending the game now and being like, if you think it's bad, just play it, just play the game now. There's no more hype, there's no more nebulous mystery around the game. It's just play the game and you won't be disappointed. So I definitely think they've done a fantastic job of giving players exactly what they wanted from the experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I was telling you, when they launched No Man's Sky Next, I decided to dive back in, and I was getting immersed big time. Like I could totally see myself getting into the game in a major way. And now that you said you're going to re-up the PlayStation Plus subscription, I do plan on waiting until you do, and then you can show me through the ropes, show me all the tricks and how to farm the best way. Because one of the things that I did notice is like I wasn't a very efficient farmer. Now somebody like yourself who's dumped probably 1,000 hours in the game, I know you could show me the most efficient way to do all those things. So I look forward to going on some excavations with you and checking out some sea creatures and building some, underwater metropolis, the EDG headquarters deep underwater. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, we got to try that.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I won't keep you any longer, Nate. One thing that I did want to close on that I saw on the PlayStation blog that they dropped that we did not mention, if you head over to PlayStationblog.com, they have released new furniture, bro. PlayStation furniture. Let me see if I can share it real quick. Yeah, this
PlayStation furniture.
furniture, dude. So again, I'll be real brief on this. Let me share this so I can pull it up. You see this, Nate?
Okay, so it looks like modern furniture. It's just PlayStation themed.
Yeah, and your boy's a sucker for shit like this. So
Are
I'm,
they selling this at IKEA?
it kind of gave me an IKEA vibe, like totally gave me an IKEA vibe until I saw the price tag. So here I'm looking at the media console, and it's $1,100 for that. I mean, it's very sharp looking. I like that it's black, and I like how low it sits. That looks pretty cool. And then what do we have here? The lounge table for $400. Ouch, that's a tough pill to swallow. Over here we have a bean bag inspired by PlayStation. You see the PlayStation logo there, and then you see like X's and all the buttons laid out there. Then we have a icon wall light inspired by PlayStation. So again, you see the triangle, circle, X, and square. And then we have these they're calling them acrylic chubby. So it looks like it holds like your games, and it chills on the wall right there. And some kind of weird. Oh, it must cradle your controller right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that looks like. So what do you think? Is this something that you would purchase? And any of it?
You know, I like the design of the coffee table and the main desk thing. But no, I mean, not at that price. I mean, you would spend almost $2,000 making your PlayStation living room. I feel like they designed that for podcasters.
Right,
Like,
right.
hey, this is perfect for your background,
That is
for your
exactly what
videos
I
or
was thinking.
streamers or
Yes.
whatever. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
It,
some of it, I do like the design of some of it, but it is just way too expensive.
Yeah, like I love the idea of a beanbag, but I think beanbags are one of those things that they're cool in concept, but they're just not really comfortable. Like trying to game in a beanbag chair is not great, dude. It's terrible on the neck. So no, thank you on that one. What does have me interested is this wall clock or wall light. I mean, just like you said, for streamers, it'd be good for the backdrop. I might actually look into that. But I mean, I'm not going to spend $1,100 on a media center.
Yeah.
No
Even if
thing.
it perfectly fits my PlayStation
Yeah.
4 and all its cables, I mean, no thanks.
Yeah. Like I said, these all look kind of cool. The only one that really has me intrigued though is this light. But yeah, I just figured I'd bring that up before we got off the podcast. But thanks everyone that is or is not going to see this. No, specifically the ones that are going to watch this. We're back. Like I said, we're going to be doing this once a month. Please share this podcast with your friends. Let them know about the might and the wonder that is the EDG podcast. Nate, I thank you for your time, my good man. And I'll see you next month.
All right, man. It was good hanging with you.
All right, guys. Have an extremely decent month, and we'll see you next November. Peace.